So let's start with the basic notes. We have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, if you know your alphabet, you're good. Music, there is no other notes. Just these. No more. There's no H, there's no J. No, just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, get that in your head. This is my piano as an example. This is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then it starts over again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then it starts over again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So on and so forth. Now, since they repeat so many freaking times, okay, you start from the bottom with C1. You go through all the letters until you come back to C again, and then that's going to be your C2. And then so on and so forth. It just keeps going up. C3, C4, C5, and C6. Now, you're not stupid, okay? The lower the number, the lower the pitch. So this is C over here, and this is C over here. You see how that one's lower and this one's higher? That's because this is C1, so it's lower, and this is C4, so it's higher. You get what I mean? And then if we go up by C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, and C6, obviously it keeps getting higher. So, from one C to another C, that's called an octave because they're the same note, it's just this one's higher and this one's lower. You see how when I play them together, they low-key sound the same? Right? But if I were to play C and B, it doesn't sound the same. Listen. See, it sounds funky because they're not the same note. C and C are. So it sounds good. By the way, it's like that for like any note. So it doesn't just have to be C, C. It could be D, E, F, G, A, E, back to C. Okay, now let's talk about these black keys. These black keys here, they're called accidentals. By the way, these are called naturals. The white ones are called naturals. The black ones are called the accidentals. So, okay, when you go up, so let's say you start at C, and you go up to this black one, you're going to call it C sharp, because you're going up to it, so it's called sharp. If you go up to it, it's called sharp of that letter. So, I don't know if this makes sense, but this one is C, so this one is C sharp. This one is D, so this one is D sharp. This one is F, so this one is F sharp. This one is G, so this one is G sharp. A sharp. And then it's the same, it just repeats for the whole thing. Now, they do have another name. They're also called flats. It's the same thing, just kind of reversed. So instead of going up and calling this A sharp, we're going to start at B and go down. So now we're going to call this B flat. We're going to call this one A flat, G flat, E flat, and D flat, right? So it's the same thing, just with a whole different name. So this is C sharp, but it is also D flat. It's the same thing, it just has two names. So clearly, you probably could tell that this one doesn't have a black one in the middle, right? So there is no E sharp or F flat. F flat is E, and E sharp is F, since there is no black one in the middle. Does that make sense? Now, when you are moving from this one to this one, it is called a half step, because you're going up, and it's kind of like, it's in between the middle of C and D. So it's kind of in the middle, so let's say it's in the half, I guess. So it's called a half step when you move from C to D. But when you move from C to C sharp. But when you go from C to D, that's called a whole step, because you're skipping this one and you're coming to D. So it's a whole step. And then from here to here, it's also a whole step. But since there is no black key between E and F, this is a half step. Does that make sense? Since this has a black key, it's a whole step. Since this one has a black key, it's a whole step. But this one does not. So it is only a half step, right? So look, this is a half step, 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 and this is a half step. Does that make sense? Okay, Does this mean anything to you? If it doesn't, you suck. I'm joking. I'm going to explain it right now. So, there is something called a scale. Ta-da! Scales are composed of notes, right? So, I'm just going to play you a scale really quick just for poops and giggles so you know what one sounds like. It sounds like this. That is a C major scale. I started on C and I ended on C, and it sounds happy. Major scales are happy. And then there's something called a minor scale, which is sad, right? So this one sounds happy and it goes from C to C, so it's called a C major scale. Now I'm gonna play a C minor scale so you know what it sounds like. See how I started on C and ended on C, but it sounds sad. So now it's a minor scale. So there are formulas to these scales, right? This is kind of like math, how there's like a formula for like solving for X or something. Más o menos the same thing, okay? So this is it, okay? This is your guide. This is your equation, okay? Whole step, half step. Whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. I'm going to explain that right now. So this is to make a major scale, by the way. Let me write that down. Okay, I wrote it pretty quick, so it's kind of shitty. But this is the equation for a major scale, okay? So I'm going to explain to you how I just did that C major scale. So you know how you remember how I said that this from C to D is a whole step? Exactly. So if the equation says whole step, then you're going to do a whole step and then another whole step. And then it says a half step. Remember how E to F is a half step because it doesn't have a black one in the middle. So this is a half step. Then a whole step, and a whole step. Those are 3 whole steps. So 1, 2, and 3. And then the last one is a half step. No black one in the middle, so this is a half step. You see? And I just made my C major scale. So now I can play it. And this works for any note. So if you want to make an E major scale, you just follow the steps. Whole step, half step, whole step, and half step. And there's your E major scale. You see? It works for any note. So that's the formula for a major scale. Just because you guys might be stupid, I'm also going to explain how it's the same thing for the accidentals. So let's say I'm gonna do F sharp, sorry, right? So whole step, half step, whole step, and half step. Boom, and that's a major scale with F sharp. You see how that works? Okay, now we're gonna learn about tempo, notes, and time signature. And by notes, I mean like the duration of the notes, like how long you hold them out. So if you guys watched the kids video I sent you, this is called a staff, right? So a staff has 5 lines, okay? And each line actually has a note. Okay, so as you can see, I wrote it down. Every line has a note. So this first one is E, the second one is G, the third one is B, fourth one is D, and then the last one is F, okay? Remember that. Now don't forget, it's not just the lines that have notes, but also the space in between. Okay, I don't know if you can see it well, but it says F, A, C, and E, okay? That spells out face. So that's pretty easy to remember because it's literally just face, okay? And then these have an acronym as well for you to remember them. Okay, see, I wrote it down just in case it confused you. So instead of reading from up to down, we're going to read from down to up, right? So every good boy does fine, and then face. So let's say there's a note right here on this first line. That would mean that that note is an E, right? And then let's say that there's one in this space right here. That would mean that that note is an A. let's say that there's one on this line over here, that would mean that that note is a D. Does that make sense? I'm gonna give an example right now. See, so when reading music, we go based off of this and this. So as a beginner, when I first started, I liked to write this down at the end of my music just to remember, you know what I mean? So it's fine. So this one corresponds to this line, so it's an E. This one is in this space, so it's an A, right? This one goes to D, so that one's a D. So then if you were to play this on a keyboard, it would sound like this. You see what I mean? E, A, and D, right? Okay. Oh, also, don't forget, this is just for treble clef. There's something else called a bass clef. And this one has completely different notes than this. Instead of every good boy does fine, it's good boys do fine always. So it's just, forget about this right now. Just remember that when you see this, you're in good hands. Because this means this, okay? Don't forget, the sign, treble clef, means this. Oh, so I never explained, but this is called a staff, right? As we all know. But then when you have a line and then another line, that is called a bar. So that is one bar of music. And then when you have another bar, that's called another bar of music. And then the last bar of music. Okay, now we're going to talk about time signatures and tempo and stuff like that. Okay, so let's start with tempo. What is tempo? Tempo is how fast or slow a song goes, right? So let's say that the song is going this fast, right? Listen to it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see how you hear the little ding? That's 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how fast a song goes. So basically, you know whenever you're clapping to a song like 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the tempo. That's how fast it's going. So if it was going a different tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4, you see how that's a lot slower? That's tempo. And tempo is basically beats per minute. Beats per minute. So we all know how there is 60 seconds in 1 minute, right? So, to give you an example of 60 seconds in a minute, what you're hearing is seconds right now. So, once 60 of those beats pass, it has been 1 minute. So, if you up the tempo to instead of 60 beats or 60 seconds per minute, and you take it to 100 beats per minute, it's gonna be a lot faster. Does that make sense? Now, when I was counting 1, 2, 3, 4, that is one of the many ways that you can count beats. That is called a time signature. I was counting 4, 4. There are 4 beats in a quarter note. That's essentially what that means, and I'll explain more on that later once we actually learn about quarter notes and stuff. But the point is that once you hear that beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, because it says 4 on the top, you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if it said 3, 4 instead of 4, 4, you would count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. See the difference? Because this one on the top is 4, you count 4, and because this one on the top is 3, you count 3. So now we're going to start talking about notes and their duration. This, I'm going to use an example using math because I feel like it's the easiest way to explain. So if you're not good with math, let me know and I'll find a different way to explain. So if you're good at dividing, this is perfect for you, okay? Okay, so we're going to start off with these. I don't know if you've ever seen these before. Maybe you have, but I'm about to teach you what they are. Okay, I put the names. I don't know if I spelled them right, but whatever. So this is called a whole note. This one is called a half note. This one's called a quarter note. This one's called an eighth note, and this one's called a 16th note. As you can tell, there's a big difference between this one and this one. But if you go step by step, there's not a whole lot of a difference. So this one is basically the same as this one, but this one has a little line. Then this one is basically the same as this one, but the hole is filled in. Then this one is the same thing, it just has a little line. Then this one is the same thing, but it has an extra line. Do you see that? So they are different, but not that much. So it can be hard to get confused. Now, what do these numbers next to it mean? So you remember how I was talking about 4, 4, right? How each beat is 4, like how when you count 1, 2, 3, 4. So these actually tell you how long to hold that note. So let's say we have a whole note, right? A whole note is 4 beats. So a whole note sounds like this, right? It's only 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A half note is 2 beats, so it sounds like this. That's a half note. It only has 1, 2. Then there's a quarter note, which sounds like this. It's just 1, literally just 1. And then an eighth note, it's a little different because instead of it being 1, it is half of 1. So you're still going to hear this, but it's going to stop a lot quicker. So instead of being 1, it's going to be 1. You see what I mean? Like, it stops a lot quicker. Same thing with the 16 note. Instead of being one whole thing, it's going to be 1/4 of that whole thing, if that makes sense. Okay, it took me a lot longer than expected to draw this example, but this is basically the breakdown, right? So you know how one whole note is 4 beats, right? So this is equal to 4 beats. And then one of these is equal to 2. So what is half of 4? 2, right? So if you do 2 plus 2, you get 4. You see where I'm going with this? 2 plus 2 equals 4. So 2 of these make up a whole one of these, all right? Then these are equal to 1. 1, 1, 1, and 1, okay? So if this is 2, and you have 1 plus 1, 1 plus 1 equals 2, right? And then if you have another 1 plus 1, which also equals 2, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 4, okay? This is my point. It's basically division. 4 divided by 2, 2. 2 divided by 2, 1. 1 divided by 2 is 0.5, right? You see how that works? And then 0.5 divided by 2 is 0.25. If you know math, you know. That makes sense, right? So one of these, 0.5 plus 0.5 is 1, right? 0.25 plus 0.25 plus 0.25 is 1. You see what I mean? Hopefully this makes a lot more sense than this did. So now I'm going to apply this to the actual staff, all right? So here we have 4, 4. This lasts 4 beats. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. End of the bar, okay? In one bar, there can only be 4 beats because the time signature says so, right? So you can't have a quarter note. You can't have a whole note and then another whole note in the same bar. That doesn't make sense because then it would be 8 beats in total when only 4 fit in here. Does that make sense? And then here, instead of having a whole note take up all this space, you can have a half note. Sorry, that was a horrible half note. Boom, because 2 and 2 equals 4. So you don't go past the limit of 4. Does that make sense? It's the same thing with quarter notes. You can have 4 quarter notes in here because each of them equal 1. So when you add up 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, it equals 4. You don't go past the limit of 4 in this bar because of the time signature. Now, I'm actually going to play this for you because this is playable, okay? You have a note here, you have a different note here, okay? They all fit into 4 because this one equals 4 and these together also equal 4. And it's on the C, okay? Do you see that? Oh, wow, my camera's a little blurry. It's on the C. So that means that this space in the middle, not in the middle, but this space here is C. So technically, I can play it. And with a metronome, it would sound like this. Okay, does that make sense? Could you tell I held this out for 4 beats on the metronome, and then since these are all just 1, I played it as 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Back into sharps and flats, okay? This is what a flat looks like. And this is what a sharp looks like. This one looks like a hashtag, and this one looks like the letter B, okay? Don't forget, this one's flat, and this one's sharp, okay? So as you can see here, I've written down some pretty normal notes, right? So according to the treble clef, right, this one is B, this one is A, and then this one is B again, right? So, pretty normal, right? This is how it would sound like. Right? No specific tempo, honestly. I didn't really count anything. But these little signs, I just taught you about these two. I haven't taught you about this one. Ignore that one. These two, right? So this is a flat. This is a sharp. So if I have a B and I have a flat sign in front of it, it is no longer B, it is B flat. Okay? That makes sense, right? Because there's a little sharp sign in front of it, a little flat sign in front of it, sorry, it is now B flat. It's no longer B, wrong. It is B flat. Okay? Same thing goes for A. Instead of having a flat sign, it has a sharp sign. So we know that for flat, we go down a step, down a half step. But for sharp, we go up a half step. And if this is A, we're going to start at A and we're going to go up a half step, right? So not A, but A sharp, right? Okay, hopefully that makes sense, okay? Okay, now I'm going to explain something. When you're reading music and you have a note and it has a sharp in front of it, that note stays sharp for the whole bar until you move on to the next one. Then it's natural, okay? Then it's the natural B, no more sharp, okay? It's just for that bar, right? So let's say that I have another B. Okay, ignore this one. Let's make this one a quarter note so it makes more sense. Let's say I have another B over here, right? But this B is sharp, so that means that this B is also going to be sharp, even though it doesn't have the sign, because this one was. Does that make sense? In that bar, this one has a sharp, this one doesn't, but it is still sharp because this one is. Now we're going to move on to this sign. What is this sign? That is a natural sign, okay? So if you have a note and it is sharp, and this one is also sharp, but then this one says it's natural. So this is what it would sound like, right? You have sharp, you have flat. Have I been saying sharp this whole time? Dang it, I meant flat, okay? B flat, and then you have another B flat. But this one is natural now. Does that make sense? Two B flats, but then this one is natural. Okay, hopefully that made sense. Okay, that's like the most I can teach you right now about music theory. There's a lot more to it, but for now, that's what you're gonna learn. That's like the basics, okay? So, boom. If you have any questions, ask. I know it's confusing, so if you want to watch it a couple times, I don't know, maybe like think about it, you can do that, okay?